Welcome to the Doubles Only Tennis Podcast, where you learn the best doubles strategies to improve your game and win more matches. I'm your host, Will Bocek. This podcast, my website, and my weekly newsletter all focus on the goal of better understanding the sport of doubles and helping players like you improve faster through actionable advice that you can use in your very next match. My goal is to provide the best doubles strategy resources in the world. And to do that, I study, analyze, and work with players at every level of the game, all the way up to the ATP and WTA tours. If you enjoy this podcast, I've created doubles strategy products that go even deeper if you want to take your doubles knowledge to the next level. At the end of this episode, I'll explain more about them, or if you want to learn more now, go to thetennistribe.com/products. Here's today's episode. You're about to hear my conversation with Rick Macci, one of the top tennis coaches in the world. So Rick is a 7-time USPTA National Coach of the Year. He's the youngest coach ever into the USPTA Hall of Fame, and he's coached 5 world number ones, including Andy Roddick, Jennifer Capriati, Maria Sharapova, and Venus and Serena Williams. If Rick's name sounds familiar, it's because he was featured in the movie King Richard. So he worked with all of these top players as juniors, and I asked him a lot about his time with Venus and Serena, specifically how much doubles did they actually play and practice. And Rick has a really good way of telling all of these stories with these top pros. So he's a great storyteller. I think you're really gonna find this conversation entertaining and insightful. He goes over some drills that he did to help Venus and Serena practice doubles. And by the way, they were 14-0 in doubles Grand Slam finals throughout their careers. He also goes over a few rules that he created for them. They were required to do a couple of things on the doubles court during every single point. And I'm going to start implementing some of this into my own practice sets and practice matches as well, because this is really good doubles technical skills that you can develop using these rules. He also goes over his story, what makes a good tennis coach. How can a adult club level player like yourself or myself find a good coach? He has worked with a lot of the top coaches in the world and has spent a lot of time hiring coaches at his academies, so he knows what it takes to be a good coach. So he has some questions that you can ask coaches in your area to find the best fit for you. And then we go over some club level doubles tips. How do we develop a better net game? How do we beat a pusher, whether it's in singles or doubles? I actually really liked his answer to this because it's a little bit different angle than most coaches take. And then we also discuss his favorite doubles drills before diving into the mental side of the game. So he is co-authoring a new book called $1 Billion Mind. And we talk a lot about mental strength, how to sustain focus throughout a match, how to perform well under pressure, and more. One of the things that I really love when I talk to these top level coaches is that I learn new things every time. And I'm finding that most of them don't focus as much as I do on the tactics or the strategy side of the game, but they really start with a foundational mental kind of fundamental approach. And it's something that I'm trying to develop in myself. So I think you're going to get that out of this conversation with Rick as well. So without further delay, enjoy this really fun, wide-ranging conversation with one of the best coaches of all time, Rick Macci. Hey everyone, welcome to the show. Today we have a 7-time USPTA National Coach of the Year, the youngest ever into the USPTA Hall of Fame, and coach of 5 world number 1 players, including Andy Roddick, Jennifer Capriati, Maria Sharapova, and Venus and Serena. Coach Rick Macci, welcome to the show.
Glad to be here. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm excited for this conversation. And you, coaching Venus and Serena as juniors, a lot of people became even more familiar with you with the movie that came out a couple of years ago. But when people think of Venus and Serena, they think of 7 Grand Slam titles, 23 Grand Slam titles, but something that is a little bit underrated or not even discussed is they actually went 14-0 in Grand Slam doubles finals. So I wanted to lead with that and ask, how much doubles did they actually practice when they were junior players, and how much did they play doubles when they were a little bit younger working with you?
Well, first off, I love the question, and they played a lot, and they always played with each other. Okay,
Hmm.
it was amazing because they loved each other so much, and they had so much chemistry, and they're both wired the same, you know. So, and you're right, they were 14-0 in Grand Slams, but what's crazy, they probably could have been 24-0 because they didn't play a lot because of the singles, and
Hmm.
whenever they played mixed doubles, it was like whoever their partner was, they grabbed a lot of those. They could have busted every record. People don't realize they didn't play because, as you know, you're playing singles, you go deep into the draw. You know, you gotta. It's kind of tough to play both, and they're playing
Hmm.
mixed. So, but to answer your question, they played doubles a lot because it was more fun. Okay, and they usually played against two coaches who were still kind of like 4, 5, 600 in the world, even though Venus and Serena were like 11 and 12. And it was mandatory that they had to serve and volley, even though their second serves weren't that good. They had to
Hmm.
take the second serve. Listen to this. Even when they were little pipsqueaks, they had to take the second serve against a guy 400 in the world and take it on the rise and come to the net. So it was a Compton street fight, all four people at the net all the time. Even though now you see people staying back more and all that stuff, they could seek and swarm, and they were very competitive. So they didn't know exactly what to do, but they knew how to fight and attack. And so that mentality alone, as you know, that can help a lot of players just because you have that aggressive mentality. Then when you kind of know what's going on, that changes everything. But they love doubles. You know, they love doubles, and the fact that they loved it, that means one thing: they're going to do it better.
Hmm. Yeah, and they certainly had a lot of success, as we said. I love those rules that they have to take the second serve on the rise and they have to serve and volley. I feel like a lot of listeners, I've said in the past to a lot of them, if they can, in these practice matches, create rules like that that force them to focus on and practice things that they're a little bit uncomfortable with, they can continue to improve those and kind of expand their comfort zone. Are there?
Absolutely. No, let me expand upon that because you're
Yeah.
right. So you got to get uncomfortable to ever get comfortable. And this is the problem with club level players and adults. They're doing the same thing 15, 20, 25 years, you know, because they don't want to fail. But once you prove it to yourself, then you get the big C, confidence. It changes everything. You don't just do the same thing you've always done. You know, they're just afraid to fail. And that's what I tell all the juniors. Obviously, it's junior development, not junior final destination. And I put everybody in very uncomfortable positions because once they prove it to themselves, then as they get bigger, older, stronger, it's so much easier and they have that belief.
Hmm. Yeah, it makes perfect sense. So I want to go back and for those listening who may not be as familiar with you, tell us your story about how you got started in tennis to developing this academy and then starting to develop some of the top juniors in the world.
Yeah, well, you could imagine. I've been asked that question, you know, a lot over my career, and it's amazing.
Hmm.
I grew up in a small town, Greenville, Ohio, 10,000 people, 20 miles southwest of Dayton, Ohio. I was actually very good at golf. You know, it's like a 4 handicap as a 10-year-old. That's crazy. No,
Hmm.
I was like the sparrow. I mean the arrow. I could hit it straight, but now I'm the sparrow. I hit it all over the place. So no, I played golf all the time. My parents were like club champions and all that good stuff. My father passed away when I was 10, and we lived in a park, like in a park. And one day at 12, I went down there with a tennis racket. I started hitting the ball against the wall. I really loved it. It came back all the time. You know, I fell in love with Wally. We just like, and this was like the late 60s. The courts were chipped up, steel nets, no windscreens. I just fell in love with the game. Listen to this. This is crazy. So at 12 years old, I kind of taught myself how to play. By 18, I was the number one junior in the Ohio Valley. You know, I could drop a lot of guys that were all Americans. I was just like very athletic. I'm in the Hall of Fame for basketball and tennis in my high school.
Hmm.
but mentally, I was always like wired different, could move good. So I kind of taught myself how to play. And that's been a little bit of the cornerstone of my teaching. Okay. I know I wasn't going to be good enough to go on the pro tour. You got to be great to make money. So I got into teaching at 22 years old. I got certified and stuff like that. Always like to analyze things. I like to help others more than help myself. And I could like motivate. I was always a leader. I wanted the ball at the end of the game at basketball. I was always that type of guy. So that's another nugget in the way I teach. But what's amazing, that started at 22. Here I am at 68. I still have the same passion. I still teach 50 hours a week, 7 days a week. I never thought about having an academy. It's when I moved to Florida in 1980. I got the job as director of tennis at Greenleaf Golf and Tennis Resort. It's the miracle in the Orange Grove. Listen to this. There wasn't even anything to do with tennis. And like 85, a doctor from Winter Haven, Florida, brought his son, a 9-year-old Tommy Ho, to me. He held the racket with a severe Western grip. And in 1985, that looked like from outer space to me. I'm going, what side of the racket is the guy hitting the ball with, But he always hit it in front, brutal angles like Rafa. To fast forward that story, he became the most dominant junior player ever, won every gold ball you could imagine. He had 15 by age 15. And when people saw him serve, Stefano Capriati, Jennifer's dad, said, can you show Jennifer how to serve? And they lived in Lauderhill. So they eventually moved to Greenleaf. So listen to this. So in 1988, Tommy won the boys 18 nationals, Kalamazoo, as a 15-year-old, a record that still stands today, younger than Chang, Agassi, everybody. Mm-hmm. And Jennifer, as a 12-year-old, won the 18s. Okay, I was actually with her. And that record still stands. I had the daily double. I had 2 in 88, and those records stand today. So people are going, God, this guy must be pretty smart or pretty lucky. I don't know. It takes 2 to tango. And so 2 years later, Richard Williams called me. People wanted to come in the summer. So I said, let's start an academy. So, and that's one thing I'm proud of. It started then. I never had a $1 billion company behind me. And here I am today. I still have an academy. It's not a glorified boarding school. What we do is different. It's all based on the quality of the instruction. We've been the leader in biomechanics. The model is amazing because I drive the engine as I still teach. So, but as well as I do, every day you got to prove yourself. And that's kind of been my motto. I've just always kept getting better and been on the cutting edge. So that's how it started and still going strong today.
Awesome. Yeah. What's something, since you started that academy several decades ago, what's something that you've changed in terms of how you run the academy? Something you maybe wish you knew when you first started?
Well, everything, because you learn every single day. But this is what people don't understand. When you get into the boarding part, and at one time I had like 90 boarders, and now we don't board anybody, and we generate more money and make more profit without that. Because when you get into the boarding, now it takes your eye off the ball. It becomes volume. And to me, it's always been the quality of the production of what goes on the court. I have 3 coaches with me that have been with me over 10 years. And in tennis, and they know the methodology inside out. That's unprecedented, So we do it. I do it much different. But I want to be everything to everybody in the beginning. You needed boarding. Then you got to have supervision. And all of a sudden there's boys and there's girls and there's vans and there's insurance. And it becomes this whole nother business within a business. And even IMG, okay, even when Nick had it, okay, a great friend, voluntary, it never made money. It lost money. It was a real estate play. People turned more real estate. The tennis was just to sign players like a Sharapova or a Courier or someone like that. That's where the money is. So it's kind of a misconception because everybody kind of followed Nick because he was the first of the Mohicans to do this. And, many people have tried and it didn't work. Many big names. And here I am, still going strong. But I changed it and got out of the boarding. I mean, we can still do it, but it's more like subtle with parents and stuff like that. But to get into that part of the business, it really doesn't work. And at the end of the day, the more personalized you can make it, And if your name's on the door, if you're there talking to them, answering emails, and even available for privates, that's why the model that I have is very different than anybody in the world. I didn't know that early on. I tried to do everything. And then from a business point of view, it just didn't work like it has, say, the last 20 years.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So when we look at the list of players that you have coached, we have Andy Roddick, one of the best serves ever, Serena, the best serve ever on the women's side. So how much time was spent on serves and returns in your junior academies back then versus today? Because it seems like just as tennis as a whole, people are practicing serves and returns more today because we have the data on like how important all of that is. But is that something you felt like you did a lot of with them back in the 80s and 90s as well? Or is it something you've changed?
No, first off, another great question. I tell people all the time, it's not in the water where you mentioned, uh, Roddick, or you mentioned Serena, and even Venus, even though she was a little disjointed, she corked at 129. And remember, Alicia Parks, she has the fastest serve ever. I mean, she's another one. But there's many other players who go to college for free, and they not only can hit it big, they could get it in. A lot of it's based on science. But to back the truck up, Venus and Serena every night would drain a public shopping cart where shopping is your pleasure, not a tennis cart, a shopping cart of balls every night, like the one you saw in the movie, every night. Okay. And it would be like, let's hit it right there, not there. And they both knew, we talked about this, we're going to have the best serves in women's tennis, especially Serena, because she was natural. Okay, as far as her throwing motion, and she could throw a Nerf football from the baseline over the fence at age 11. The other fence, not the one behind you.
Yeah.
I had something to work with, but it still had to be put together where the leg drive initiated it. Listen, you can hit as many serves as you can, and you're mastering garbage. There's certain common threads, and the way I teach the serve is probably very different, even more so with my collaboration with Dr. Brian Gordon, who has his PhD in biomechanics. He did his thesis on this. The serve, to me, is the easiest to teach because there's no movement. Where most people, it's complicated. Probably 90% of the girls on the tour, biomechanically, it's wrong, where the legs go at the wrong time. But if you do enough of anything, it's still going to get better, but it's not optimal. That's why that some people, their serves look shorter and more compact, because they keep it on that. I don't want to go too deep in it. They keep it on the hitting side, the legs go at the right time. So, but I spend so much time on serve, you have no idea. But you got to kind of know what you're talking about. It's not just toss it higher, bend your knees, go into the court. It's my experience, people toss it too far in the court. It's more about the vertical than it is the linear. But we could do a whole nother podcast just on that. Yeah. But no, I do. Everybody has to serve, and it's all about spots. And returns are premium because just with the technology, as you know, and the strings, everybody can hit it harder, even if they have bad mechanics, but getting it in, like Federer and hitting spots, that's the name of the game. So yeah, no, return of serve, especially with the Williamses, was a premium. They actually stood closer to the service sign than the base sign, and people would watch them play and they say, hey, they're standing in the wrong place. I go, no, you're looking at the wrong movie. It was like they were going to change the game. I mean, Jennifer was like that too, but that's just the way I teach the girls, because let's face it, the second serve, especially in women's tennis, that's a nice treat to be had. It might be the shortest ball of the rally.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you had your academy, obviously you had to hire a number of coaches over the years. What makes a good tennis coach? And a follow-up question to that is how can listeners, especially, these club level doubles players, how can they find a good coach? What questions should they be asking? What should they be looking for?
No, first off, I love this. What I look for, number one, it's not how much you know, it's how much you want to know. Because they can learn a whole treasure trove from myself with the experience I've had. No one's been on a tennis court since age 22 than myself in the world teaching. But that doesn't mean you're going to be good at what you do. I'm always evolving. So I look for how they treat people, how they can inspire people, Are they a role model, a father figure? This is very important to me. I don't need someone that won a grand slam. They might be able to help in another area, or someone might be a better hitter. That doesn't mean they're a good teacher. You got to extract greatness out of young kids if they're working with kids. Now, if they're working with adults, they got to ask the adult, what do they really want to change? Some people just want to work out. They just want strategy. Some people want reconstructive surgery, So it depends on what they want. And it's kind of tricky nowadays. As you know, there's so much insanity on the internet because everybody has a platform. And some people will rewrap it, regurgitate it, and people hear the wrong stuff. My advice to any adult listening to this, experiment, change your feet the way you're serving, maybe even tweak your grip, stand in a different place to return serve, do things that you've never done before. And like we said earlier, to get uncomfortable, to get comfortable, I teach everybody very different. When people miss, I like it if it's for the right reason. No one missed more balls than Venus because she would just go for it. And I said, don't worry, 3 more inches, you get bigger, stronger, they're going in. This is what I teach courage, and I teach no fear. Where most people, they put them in a prevent defense, try not to lose. They can win, good conversation at the cocktail party. They might be nicely ranked, but they end up 5 at a college. I teach no fear, okay? And this is a process. But unfortunately, as you know, people kind of do what they want to do, So that's a tricky question. But back to the coaching part, then if they want to learn, and how they interact with people, that's very important. And just to expand upon that, I had one coach say, Rick, I don't want to work with her anymore. She has a bad attitude. She always throws her racket. She doesn't listen to me. I said, I understand. Everybody wants a perfect student, but it's your job to get her to listen to you. It's your job to make her have a great attitude. And it's your job to really like her. I like the ones that are a challenge, the ones that, I like it because the easy ones, we all like that, the perfect student, you know what I mean? But that's the job of a coach. You can't pick and choose who you're going to teach. It's your job to figure it out. And that's what separates a great coach from a good coach.
Yeah, really good advice. So you mentioned very briefly throwing the rackets. So when I was growing up playing, and we'd have junior development clinics or practice matches or whatever, anytime I would throw my racket, my coach would make me run laps. That was our punishment. How did you deal with bad attitudes? And if you have any stories you can share from Venus or Serena or Andy, I don't want to get you in trouble, but if you have anything to share, just dealing with kind of that discipline that's needed for junior players.
Well, first off, when I grew up, I had a T2000, and even if I threw it, it wouldn't break. It was metal around it. I never like threw my racket once in my life. And I'd go home at night. I was telling Jason, my partner, and I'd take Windex and spray it, and I'd kind of clean it. It cost $25, back in the day. And so I'm just like wired different. So when I see kids throw the racket, it's not even about the temper. It's more like they don't have appreciation, whether they're getting the racket for free, okay, or their parents are buying it. I try to have that conversation first. Unfortunate, they see the pros do it. That's not the best thing. So I said, instead of throwing the racket, if you want to do something, just hit yourself. They go, they don't do that. They'd rather do the racket thing, So I try to educate them. I don't really threaten them. But if it gets out of hand, I would do that. But I don't have people throwing the rackets that much. Roddick never really threw the racket. He got mad a lot. Serena got mad all the time. But she kind of likes it when I tell people that. I mean, this wasn't a racket, but the first time we got in the sand pit to play tag, listen to this. There's 30 other kids. They just got there. They're in the sand pit playing tag, shaking and baking, bobbing and weaving. You're working on agility, mobility, flexibility, and they're running around. And Serena, when she came time for her to be it, she ran and tagged the person with a closed fist. I said, whoa. We're not in conflict anymore. You got to have an open fist.
Oh, wow.
That was her. That was that rage inside of her. But I like it that they have that type of backbone, better than a backhand. So the temper's not bad, as long as you got 20 seconds to flip it in your mind like it happened 20 years ago. And to this day, I've never had anybody better at that than Maria Sharapova. I saw that girl was in a bubble, wasn't the best athlete. Forehand was like not that good. She wasn't even the best 11-year-old in my academy. I think Bethany Maddox-Sands beat her and taught Katia Fenigena. But mentally, every point she was there. And I saw that at Kenin, the scariest little creature I ever taught, Sophia Kenin, at a young age. So the temper thing's not bad if they can be ready to go. That's the hardest thing because your brain's not developed yet as a youngster and they can't reason. So throwing the racket, if it got out of control, I would just say, you throw it again, okay, you're not coming to practice the rest of the week. Running a lap, that might be opening ceremonies, but I think you got to go deeper than that because when you take it away, okay, you're out for the week or something like that, it changes everything. But I've never had anybody really throw the racket that much. And then I take case by case. I kind of wish some people would have more passion and more fire as long as I said, like the next point. Roddick was like that. He would get so mad, but the next point, he got more determined. And it helped him, because he had so much passion. So at the end of the day, they figure out, and I just say, listen, look at Federer, Nadal, Djokovic, Alcaraz, look at the people at the mountaintop. If you're not going to listen to Rick Macci, look what they do. Okay. Imitate them. And that'd be the best way to get smarter. Look at people a lot smarter than you.
Yeah, exactly. So I want to ask a few more questions about kind of club level doubles. Yeah. So one of the most common ones I get is, let's take me, for example. So let's say I come to you and say, Rick, I'm play a lot of doubles. I'm really not that comfortable at the net. I'm afraid to poach. I don't know where to be. I'm afraid to move at the net. I don't like getting passed down the line. How would you start coaching me to kind of get over that and get more comfortable up there?
Okay. Well, first off, I appreciate your honesty, but I would build your game still around your strengths. I don't think you should flip the switch 360 and make someone just start doing something, but I would create situations where it's not that competitive. It shouldn't be with like maybe their friends per se. Maybe it's going to be with other coaches or whatever, where you make them do it. And this is life in general. And we both know this. When you get confidence, then you want to do it more and you believe. But when you are afraid, let's face it, fear is the number one motivating factor in the world, but can also make you go the other way, in general. So I would create an environment where they're doing it, but it's fun and we're laughing because they got to prove it to themselves. You can't just feed them balls. It's not a technical thing. When they get there and they don't want to hit it someone to go down the alley, listen, you want them to hit it down the alley because that means you're moving to the center and you're aggressive. That you got to explain it differently, but I would create situations where they would flourish and build confidence. And this even happens on the pro tour, maybe not that extreme, but in singles, you see these people, they just disappear, especially more on the women's tour. It's like, what's going on? They don't take it as early. They're on their back foot. They don't believe. Confidence is a fleeting thing. So at the club level, you got to create the environment, make them do it if they want to do it. And even if they don't want to do it, I try to sell them on to doing it. And they feel better because, listen, they're not turning pro. They don't have a lot of time to practice. They will feel better about themselves because once you prove it to yourself in anything, whether it's getting up and speaking in front of 5,000 people or whatever profession you're in, the more you do it, you feel comfortable and it becomes second nature.
Mm-hmm. So
I wouldn't put them out there with their competitors and make them do it because they got still that factor. Even juniors don't want to do that a lot. You know what I'm saying? Even if I make it mandatory, you got to come in on both serves and their second serve's not that good, or it's mandatory. They have to do it, or we don't play doubles. We're not going to, because I know when I'm not looking or you're in a tournament, you'll probably stay back and hit ground strokes because they want the W. You know what I mean? I get that. And I'm not saying that's a bad tactic, but this is development. Let's see how you develop and let's see where you're at in 5 or 6 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it sounds like
no one came to the net as a junior that I had more than Bethany Maddox-Sands. And I used to tell her dad, listen, I don't know where it's going singles. Okay. She could definitely be top 100, but she'll win so many doubles titles and everybody's going to want her to play mix. And this was at age 11.
Hmm.
She just loved crossing and hitting people. She was like a little Doberman pitcher with an attitude, and she just always came in. That's why in singles, she would rush too much, but it's because she loved the volley. But that was already there. It wasn't from me, but I did so many games where she loved that because it's all about volley, volley, volley. The more you do anything, the more you love it.
Hmm. Yeah, it definitely shows even still today when she plays. Um, so next, this could be singles or doubles. A lot of club players have trouble. They'll come to me, or I'm sure you get this a lot, and it's like, I had this match the other day, and the person just kept pushing, and I couldn't figure out how to beat them, but their strokes weren't any good. How do you handle that? How do you beat a doubles team or a singles player who doesn't seem to have the strokes, but they also don't miss?
Yeah. No, well, we both get that a lot. Obviously, juniors do it a lot, especially 12 and 14s, because the serve's not that big a deal yet, or the return. But here's what happens. It starts with the mentality is they cannot hurt me. And I love playing pushers, right? Or moonballers, whatever you want to call it. See, the first thing people do is what you just said. They hate it. So if you hate it, okay, it's going to be a rough day at the office. Think about it. They cannot hurt you. They can annoy you. They can frustrate you if you let it. I'm as much a life coach as a tennis coach, so you got to love playing pushers, and you got to look at it. They cannot hurt you, and you got to be prepared. Okay. Like playing the Dow on clay, it's going to be breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You're going to be out there a while, and your best shots are going to come back. What happens is people get impatient. Even coaches say the wrong thing, attack them, go the net, be aggressive. Now you're not playing your game, and they want you to do that. So they carve you up like a Thanksgiving turkey, so that doesn't work, but it's a mindset. You think, and I tell all the juniors that, listen, you're going to have to hit a lot of balls. They're going to reset. They don't take chances. They're not coming to the net unless they shake your hand. Don't look over there. It looks like a train wreck. They're on their back foot. They got a crazy grip. The backswing goes back to, the moon. But here's what they do. They fight, they run, they sweat, they shut up, and they're on balance. And as we both know, that's the starting point on tennis to get there and try to get it back over. And that bothers people. So the first thing you have to do is put it in your mind. They can't hurt me. I love playing pushers. I'm going to have to hit a lot more balls. That's the way I approach this with everybody. Then, depending on the skill level of the player I'm coaching, they might have to return to sender and throw the high balls back up, and they might sneak in if they have volley capabilities. They might use the drop shot a little bit more. Each individual, because this is so individualized, I can't throw a net. It depends on their strengths and weaknesses. Then I tell them some things tactically, but it starts with mindset. I love it. And you came right out of the blocks and said they hate it.
Yeah.
You know what? I tell people all the time, would you rather have that or Alcaraz hitting bullets 80 miles an hour off both sides at you? And they all take the pusher, because that's what's going to happen. You're not going to see that when you're 18, you go to college or pro tennis. It's a moment in time. Embrace it. Love it. You can't control it. You can modify it with your tactics, but your mindset should be, they cannot hurt me. I can only hurt myself. I'm going to be out here longer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that mindset shift. I don't think I've ever heard an answer that starts with that. It's usually something that's tactical. But it seems like, yeah, you do have to start with that mindset and then worry about some of the other stuff.
Yeah.
So earlier you mentioned you had Venus and Serena required to serve and volley. They had to take the second serve on the rise. Are there any other doubles drills or situational drills that you like to coach for your players?
Yeah, well, there's two. There's this game I started in 1985. It's called 2-on-2. It's on YouTube. I stand on the side of the net post. I have all four people at the net. They're away from a little bit, and I feed the ball. And it's been duplicated, never imitated, because I can feed. You got to feed. You keep score. You play to 11, and I feed the ball. And it's like playing a game of Twister on steroids. I put them in awkward positions where they got to shake and bake, and they got to improvise. I develop the motor skills. Okay, they got to cross and poach. There's lob volleys involved, because I put them at the net more in that game, in say 30 minutes than they might be in 1 year playing doubles, simply because I developed their skills. And to this day, I could go through the medley of people that I've coached, and they all talk about that game that I started. And it's like, it's on YouTube, and you'd have to see it. It's like, and when I get 4, 6, or 8 nationally ranked kids, all top 10 in the nation, it was amazing. They'd be running up the fence to play defense. When one team got to 10, I'd feed overheads to work on defense. It was all about crossing and closing, but I'd expedite the learning curve because I'd make them hit half volleys, use the continental grip, take the temperature of how to lob the ball, hit a soft little dink. You know what I mean? So I would just put them up there, and it's like scrambled eggs. It'd be all over the place, and they love it. They would do that all day, then hit ground strokes. The kids love it. And if they're dead tired, they're not tired anymore because it's fun. When people have fun, they forget they're being tired. So that drill is the leader in the clubhouse. There's nothing even close. But a tip that I give everybody, when you play doubles, it's usually like, that's your side and that's your side, and that's your side and that side. I flip it. I say, you're in that square. Your goal, your area is the other square. I change it. Like, they're supposed to be over there, not there. Like the person you said they don't want to have it go down the alley. It's only going to go down there a few times, but when it does go there, you feel bad. But they don't care if it goes down the middle 100 times, or they don't care if it goes cross court and they should have been there, like, going for it. They have it backwards. Forget about the alley. It's open for business, like 7-Eleven, 24/7. Let them hit it down the alley. Okay. And if it goes there a lot, then obviously you respect it. They don't even think about the alley in pro tennis. It's all the middle, pinch in the middle. And I tell everybody, your best friend, besides your partner, is that net strap I see behind you. The net strap is your best friend. That's where you want to be. Wherever you're standing at the net, go to the net strap. You bisect the angle, so you're cutting the angle. You always want that. Okay. But also, when people love to play the net, the lobster has to come and play. There's nothing wrong with lob. The lob is the most underestimated shot in the game. It's like serve or return or forehand or backhand, especially in doubles, the lob, and there's all kinds of variations to that, an offensive lob or defensive. So my take would be, when you play doubles, you want to take the other side. You got to think that's your job description. So that's why when you see people aggressive attitude, or they played other sports, or they have a lot of anger, whatever, they're only playing once or twice a week, they just want the ball. That trumps technique. Even though the volley technique's always kind of in the neighborhood, you'll see some people up are like kamikaze pilots, and they intimidate people. A lot of those the aggressiveness trumps everything. And I got to tell this story. People will love this. It was like, I think Venus and Serena were 12 and 13. We got invited to do an exhibition at the Family Circle Cup. It's not called that anymore, in Hilton Head, South Carolina. And they didn't play any junior tournaments. Richard didn't want to do the hamburger. He just wanted the filet mignon. So we go do an exhibition. Listen to this. In front of 5,000 people, they're playing against Rosie Casals and Billie Jean King. And Venus and Serena were 12 and 13. All right. And they had a lot of publicity, a lot of hype, no tournaments. They kind of were legendary before they did anything. I was saying they're going to be better than Capriati. They'll both be number one someday. So there's just a lot of hate. Okay. So they go there. They didn't really know how to play doubles, like conventional doubles, but they knew how to fight, and they knew how to seek and swarm and destroy. And they knew that it was like a Compton street fight. So Billie Jean was ready to serve, and Venus, I think I said this earlier, Venus was standing closer to the service line than the base line. She goes, "Hey, Venus, you're in the wrong place." And she just kind of ignored her. Like, this is kind of where we're trained. And they would hit the return. They were shocked. And they hit it right at the person. They didn't even hit it back on court. They wanted to hit it at the person. They wanted short points. And they would, how they were intense, and they'd scream. And people were stunned. They didn't know what they were doing. They had good technique. They didn't know what they were doing. But every time they just were at the net. And they were, Billie Jean and Rosie were blown away. So listen to this. So then we get off the court. I mean, Billie Jean and Rosie were like 19 Grand Slam titles or whatever. Probably one of the best doubles teams of all time. We had to get back to the airport. We're flying in the van to catch the flight. Richard's driving, Orsine's in the front. VW is Serena's next to me, and I hear something. Hey V, how did you serve today? I served very good, thank you. How was your volleys? My volleys were on fire. Thank you very much. I'm going, what's going on here? There's Richard. There's Orsine. There's Serena next to me. I turn around in the back. Venus is getting interviewed by a doll. Now, remember, they just came off the court playing two of the greatest players ever. 5,000 people. 5 minutes later, she's interviewing herself by a doll. The moral of the story, Richard knew that I knew that they're kids first and tennis players second.
That's
Crazy.
Awesome. What a story.
That's the balance. No, that's the balance they had. And I think you saw that in the movie King Richard. So
yeah, definitely. So we're gonna link to that 2-on-2 drill. I'll find it on YouTube, and we'll link to the 2-on-2 doubles
you just gotta
drill.
have the coach keep track of the score. That's tricky because it goes so fast, and it's the art of the feeds. And depending on the skill level, I up the ante. I make it tougher. If someone is on the court that's like number one in the nation in the 18s, it's different than. But you can. They love it.
So I wanted to transition to kind of the mental side of the game, because you're certainly very well known as a mental coach as well. And you've got your new book coming out, $1 Billion Mind, a practical guide for mental strength in the game of life. And I want you to tell us a little bit about the book. But before that, I wanted to ask you simply, how do you define mental strength?
First off, another great question. I got to back the truck up all the way to 1981 because people ask me who had the biggest influence in my life. It's by far Dr. James E. Lair, a pioneer in sports psychology. He was the first of the Mohicans. Now everybody's rewrapped what he's done. This guy was revolutionary, and we did so many things together as I was the director there with the corporate structure, to get the corporate people to do better in what they do, not just in tennis. It wasn't really geared for juniors, so how to slow things down in your mind and how to, just there's all these triggers and how to control your breathing. And so he had a big influence, but I had a lot of that growing up because no one taught me. I had to figure it out on my own. So, mental strength, in my opinion, is having to remember to forget. That's the hardest thing because we're all humans. We have an emotion. Things go through us. Mental strength is not how hard you work. I mean, all this goes into the puzzle, but it's having the ability to forget. That's the hardest thing, especially in tennis or with a quarterback who throws 2 interceptions. He's probably thinking, the average guy is saying, I hope I don't do number 3, or I am going to hand it off to the running back, where a guy who believes goes in there for he just fires it again. So you got to have the ability to forget. It's the hardest thing. And that's what the best players do in the world. Like I told you, Sharapova, like it never happened. And she had that without any training, whether it's innate, whether it's genetic, whether you can learn it, you definitely can learn it. Excuse me, you can definitely learn it. But it's hard because you have a feeling and it's not the best feeling. But like when you play doubles and you make a mistake, you behave totally different. You give a high five, you give a fist pump, you're in love with your partner, you forgot about it. But in singles, it sticks like Velcro. So having the ability to forget, to me, is mental strength. And then the next thing would be, they go hand in hand, never giving up. You go to a junior tournament, you could walk around and you could probably say, without looking at the scorecard, who's winning and losing, just by looking at the player. But if you look at Nadal, Federer, you can't even tell who's winning or losing. Okay. And this is what I try to get all the players. You want to be like that someday? Imitate that part. But people don't work on the mental because it's an intangible thing. They can't feel it. They're not sweating. But that's the leader in the clubhouse. Just like the guy you said, who gets every ball. He's just a gamer, always cares about, I got to get to the ball. He's not worried about missing, and he doesn't choke as much. And that's when you can handle pressure. You don't choke as much. Everybody gets nervous. Okay. But greatness isn't afraid. There's a difference between nervousness and afraid. But to answer your question more specifically, never giving up, never making excuses, but having the ability to forget. That's a skill. And you can learn that, but it's the hardest thing to do because we're all wired, as humans, and we have emotions.
How do we train that for tennis? Is it something where we need to set up pressure situations in practice, or are there off-court things we should be doing? How can, and I ask this from the perspective again of a club level player who may not, do this professionally, but they do play 10-point tiebreakers in their local league, and they have matches that count, and they get nervous. How should someone kind of train and improve their performance under pressure like that?
I've done a lot of videos on this, and people, I know they're going to think it's so vanilla and so simple. I would love everybody who's listening to this, and I know they won't do it, when they go out and play, every time they hit the ball, I want them to smile. Forget even breathing out, forget grunting. Every time you hit the ball, smile. Every time you get an overhead, smile, because that's the moment of truth. Because you've done a lot of things to set the table, or you're going to deliver the good, or you're going to miss it. Because they all think, oh my God, I hope I don't miss it. And you have a different, your blood pressure is different and all that stuff. Smile. Now, some people are going, I can't smile. It's too serious. Yes, you can. It's a choice. I know that's extreme, but studies indicate when you smile, the nervous system is very relaxed. It's like, and some people try to smile and it's a fake smile. I'm just telling you, I know that sounds crazy, but that's the leader in the clubhouse. I have people smile all the time. I have people volley. Listen to this. I'll put another racket in their other hand, even though they're right-handed, and they volley better with a racket in this hand or their hand in their pocket, okay, and just volleying because they think it's not real and I'm not wired. I don't have any muscle memory and I'm not tight. So they volley better with a racket in their hand. Some people rally better when the court's a little wet. So they know it's not serious, so they're more on balance and they're more relaxed. I've seen it all. I've done this thing for so long, but those are things that I'd want people to do. And if you're playing, go back to the fence. Obviously, take a deep breath. Go to the towel. You got 20 seconds to make it like it happened 20 years ago. If you look at Sharapova and all the great ones, when she came off that fence, she was bouncing around. You can picture her moving her hair right before she served, and she did that little bounce. She did that her whole life. And the more you're more like a machine in a positive way, the more you're going to handle pressure and perform better. So you need to get into a routine. And if you look at the best of the players, they're all in a routine. The way they do this, Roddick used to do this, sure, what Rafa did. They all do the same thing. And the club players need to get into that routine. But when they make a mistake, they should go back to the fence. But I'd love them when they make a mistake to say something positive themselves, just like they do probably in doubles from their partner.
So tell us about the new book coming out.
I think it's going to be a bestseller. It's kind of crazy because Dr. Niva, believe it or not, I taught her and her twin sister when they were kids that went to Harvard. She was number one in the South. She's like one of the best in the world, okay, at what she does. She reached out to me about collaborating on a book because I'm talking about the real life and she's talking about from the neurological point of view, the medical point of view. This book is amazing because it has Rick Macci all through it in very simple terms. There's a notebook you can follow. People are going to be blown away when they read this. It has nothing to do with tennis, even though it can help tennis. It's everything. Okay. It's so in detail about everything. And then there's the science part of how some of this works, but it's very readable. There's poems in it. There's quotes. There's stories. There's all the Maceyisms. There's some stuff from my other book. There's stories. But people will just, anybody who's read it, even the person who was like doing a lot of this work, they were like so inspired. They felt they could run faster, jump higher. They wanted to go out and do whatever. They were just fired up, about the book. Okay. So it's unreal motivating to anybody, but it's something, a journal that you can keep with you forever and ever. So it's going to be available probably on Amazon. It'll be out before Christmas. It blew me away because all my stuff was in there. Okay. That I always say, and all the gold nuggets and gems and the one-liners and all that stuff. But to have it with Dr. Niva, who's like, she's a genius, and the thing that's great, we're going to do many more on many different subjects. Okay. But what was interesting, I taught her and her sister And all these years, people come back because she says the difference I had on her life and the difference I made about her work ethic. And I get that, from Christian Ruud, Casper's dad, and everybody. It's not even about the forehand or the backhand. It's just work harder, and they pass that down to their kids, not make excuses, just to inspire, what I've done. And to me, that's probably been my greatest gift, the passion I put into other people to see what they could become. But people are going to love the book, and it will be out before Christmas.
Awesome. Well, yeah, we'll definitely link to it once it comes out. And yeah, I'm looking forward to reading it myself. So, Rick, last question for you. How do we make doubles more popular?
Well, that's at the highest level, that's easy. Okay, if you had the best players, the people with the name, if they played, but the only way they're going to play, they might not even play if they had an amazing amount of guaranteed money to play, because what's interesting, they probably wouldn't even get to the quarters or semis, because the guys that play doubles, they're double specialists, and they are better than Joker or Alcaraz or Sinner or any of these guys that are, they're better at doubles, but they don't have the name. So that's why it goes hand in hand. You know what I mean? Because people would tune in if you had the names, even though they're not the best doubles players. And unfortunately, that's never going to change. As I said earlier about VW and Serena, they pull out of many Grand Slams because they were still in the singles or maybe the mix, and you got to eat and sleep and go to the bathroom. I mean, there's so many hours in the day, so it's never going to change. I think it's going to be very difficult, but believe it or not, people that play tennis, especially the adults, they can learn more watching doubles than really singles, because it's more realistic about what is going on there. So it's a great question. I just think that they'd have to have the top players. More people would watch it. But then again, they might play a couple rounds and drop out, because they're still in the singles. At the Grand Slams, as you know, it's 3 out of 5. That's brutal. Then you got to make a day's rest, and you got to go back out again. And you might play another 4 hours. To play doubles, it's not worth it. And they make so much money. So I don't know. Maybe they could tweak it a little bit, but I think it's all about name recognition.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. I think on the men's side, for sure, it's a lot tougher with the 3 out of 5, at least. Yeah, the women. I mean, Coco's played a lot of doubles the last couple of years, which has helped. But even at the WTA finals, she mentioned.
I'm glad you brought that up. That's helped her develop her game. Okay, on the job training, digging out low volleys. I mean, more repetition, but more importantly, 15, 16, 17, 18, she's getting to play against players maybe she wasn't going to get to play against at 15 and 16. Now she got better, obviously. Now she plays against everybody. So and when you get something on someone, even it's doubles, it brings confidence. You ace someone, or you put it by him, or you outdo him at the net. That just makes you grow as an athlete. Confidence breeds confidence. And then Pegula. I mean, I have so much respect for her, because we always talk about entitlement. Eastern Europeans are more hungry. Her parents, they own the Buffalo Bills. I mean, they're a billionaire, the Bills. And look, and she's overlooked. She always plays doubles and singles. I have so much respect for her because it's all from within. Because she didn't have to do anything. She could go to the beach every day. So I know we stereotype it. You can't be spoiled. You got to be rough and tough. I get all that. But she's a great role model that breaks the mold, saying, listen, I have everything and more. She's not millionaire. Her parents are billionaires, and she's still hungry because it's about one thing, the competition. Anybody, anytime, anywhere. And that's what this is all about. Everything's going to change around you. As you see, that hurts a lot of players when they have success, they disappear. Maybe Raducanu, some of these people, when they get injuries, but nothing's changed. And that's what I love about Andy Roddick. He was the feistiest little mosquito I ever taught. His thirst for competition was brutal. He'd always come back for more. And that's why he never really had any bad losses. I feel he overachieved. He wasn't going to be Sampras. He wasn't going to be like that level, but he was going to be the best Andy Roddick. He could be one of the best competitors and a great role model for any junior that might be watching this or anybody. He was all about the competition. That's why I love Andy Roddick.
Absolutely. So, Rick, this was a ton of fun. Any final requests of the audience before I let you go?
Yeah, listen, if anybody wants to have me look at a video, they can go to my website, www.rickmacy.com. I do thousands of videos from all around the world. People send me their forehand, backhand, and serve. What I do is different. I correct things and I show them a way to correct it. So I probably have more corrective techniques than anybody in the world of how to reverse engineer things and reprogram the reflexes. So I'm not going to just say, prepare early and bend your knees. Okay, send me a check. I'm not that type of guy. This is very different. And that's why I do thousands a year. I just look at people's videos. I also do a lot of Zoom videos for people all around the world that can't come here. All right. So I'm available to do that. Also, I have a lot of videos. It's like NetRicks. It's under I think $100. It's like 40 videos under 10 minutes. Coaches, players. There's so many great things in there that people can get. But if anybody ever comes to Florida, even if they just want to stop by Rick Macci Tennis Center, Boca Raton. I told you before, I grew up like a half mile from a park. Here I am at 68 years old. I open up the park every day at 5:00. I'm a park ranger. I'm putting that on my resume. I'm on court one all the time. They can stop by, get a picture, or if they wanted me to do reconstructive surgery, I work with the number one 80-year-old in the country. I work with the number one junior in Europe, over 30 girls on the tour, and I can just help anybody. And it doesn't matter who's over there. It's that hour, that minute, that second. They're my favorite students. So I'm available to help anybody if they're in Florida. If they just want to stop by and say hi and get a picture, I'm on court number one.
Awesome. Thanks a ton, Rick. For everyone listening, we'll link to all that in the show notes so you can easily find Rick on his website. And yeah, Rick, thanks again. This was a ton of fun.
We'll do it again. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Doubles Only podcast. If you're interested in diving deeper into any topics I discuss, I've created doubles strategy products that allow me to bring you more podcasts and other doubles content without relying on paid ads. I have ebooks and courses that help you make better strategic decisions during matches and become the smartest player on the court. Go to thetennistribe.com/products to learn more. You can also join my free weekly doubles strategy newsletter that includes video lessons and more on our homepage. If you want to connect, you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, or email me directly, will@thetennistribe.com.